Yo, what's going on, guys? This is the build that I'm running in today's video, and I kind of just want to talk about some ideas for Path of Titans. I just feel like the game's pretty still right now. Obviously the TOCs are really cool and stuff, and the long distance calls. But honestly, besides that, there's not really much besides combat changes, and I think that's kind of the problem. Most of the game is kind of focused on combat. But there's not really much to do after you've gotten to adult, besides fight other dinos and quest for skins. Now to start off, honestly, I think weather events would be really cool. Other games have done this. I'm not sure how hard it would be to implement into Path, but I just think that stuff like famine, weather events like thunderstorms or floods or anything like that could make it could force people to move around the map, and it just make it a lot more interesting because you see massive groups just sitting in one spot. That way, it kind of in some areas are just very dead, especially on Pandora. It would just make people move around more. It would be a lot more interesting because there's really no reason to go anywhere outside of growing and getting some marks. But other than that, you can just sit anywhere you want as long as there's some berries around or if it's a hot spot. Whereas it would actually change up the game, and there would be not so much of hot spots. There would be just like, you have to get away from like a sandstorm or whatever. Some dinos can stay in them, or you can stay in them, but you lose more food or something like that. Just anything to get people moving around, or maybe some dinos get stronger from like certain weather events, like they do with the wet targets and stuff. Or like some dinos are really good forest hunters. Maybe some are better in like a deserty area. Maybe they get like a buff in speed or damage, or they get some stealth buffs or something like that. Just kind of make dinos have an area where they thrive in. Obviously, you've got land and you got sky, and then you've got the water stuff. But I'm saying more of like specific, like Aloe could be a forest hunter rather than just just going around the whole map, stuff like that. Just to add more content, really. Another thing is maybe add something after adult, maybe like elder. Maybe you get a cool skin for it. Maybe you get an increase of. You just get to choose if you want to increase your turn radius, you want to increase your damage, your combat weight, your health, stuff like that. But make it, it's really hard to get. Or maybe start adding. I know they're working on adding achievements and stuff, but maybe they you need to get 100 kills for this skin, 1,000 for this one, 10,000 for that one. That could be like the max. Just kind of have something to look forward to rather than just aimlessly running around and getting a trophy that you probably can't even use because you're already adult and stuff like that. Because honestly, it gets really boring. Like, it's really cool doing the PvP stuff, but once you've played the game for years, it gets a little bit stale. Obviously they add these TLCs, but honestly these TLCs only really last for like a week until you can only play the dino so much unless you've actually got a goal for it, and just stuff like that. And I also really think it's crazy that when they made Gondor, they never thought of adding a snow area or like an actual desert or a jungle. The immersion on Gondor is kind of just like, it's not really immersive. It's like, you went from forest straight into like a rocky area or this and that, where it's like it kind of builds into it, like the environment slowly changes from this bright green to it's getting darker, and then maybe you're in the snow area or a desert. I think snows and desert should be in the game. I think they're missing out a very big part on that. Also, I think that a lot of a lot of the stuff is way too much cliffs and way too much hills in specific areas, and it gets kind of annoying because people just use it as a tactic or whatever. You want to back yourself up against the wall or a cliff and cliffbait. And I kind of wish it was a little bit more open, more flat, rather than just these up and down, up and down, up and down consistently. Like, I understand for there to be like big hills and stuff and rocky areas, that's fine. But the thing is, a lot of the time, just everything is just a massive hill, and it's just consistently throughout the whole entire map. So yeah, just stuff like that. Adding snow and desert would be the two main things I would say. Maybe a jungle as well, and more of the swamp, because you know the only part you see of the swamp is on Gondor in the very centre, Sharptooth Marsh, and after that, you know, you don't really see much of it. So yeah, I feel like the duck should be like, you know, it should get a buff in the swamp. You know, just, it doesn't mean that you're forced to play in that specific area. It just means that you do get stronger in specific areas, maybe, or you just grow faster. Make it that you can grow faster in specific areas for specific dinos, like the Anno. Obviously it was like a deserty dino, so you know it could thrive in the desert. You could grow faster in desert areas, or maybe you could get more marks in those areas. That would be cool too. That way they're not forced to be more specific for PvP. It could be more for PvE. So maybe you lose less hunger, maybe get more coins, more growth. It's easier to build a nest, stuff like that. Another thing is about nests. I feel like nests are kind of they're cool, but there's not much to them. You know, you build it and then you can just adopt stuff and stuff like that. A lot of it is very focused on the growing aspect, but I feel like, and it also gives you HP increase as well, recovery. But I feel like there should be more to it. For like, I'm not really too sure what they could add, but you know, I was thinking about you could respawn at the nest, but obviously that isn't gonna work because people are just gonna put their nests in hotspots, or they're just gonna, you know, if they're a massive group, they're just gonna put them all in the same area, and it's gonna be impossible to take the area from them. So that's kind of a problem. Maybe, I'm not too sure what they could add to the nest, but I feel like, you know, if they could figure something out for that, that would be really cool too. Is it's very plain right now. Now, another thing is migration zones. I feel like there should be migration zones. You know, force herbs to move around. Make carnivores have to hunt for their food, rather than, you know, go where you want, go to a hotspot, that's it. No, make it to where there's famines for herbivores. So, you know, there's like there's grass or something, or the berry bushes are dying, or there's just not a lot. That way there can only be a little amount of herbies around in specific areas, whereas the majority of herbies, so like the big strong herbies can, you know, hog all the food in that one area. That doesn't have too much, but it's just enough to keep the, like, an Eotric alive. So that way, you know, it has to compete for food, not just like, oh, you know, massive group, you know, we can all just eat, it'll refresh itself. You know, there should be famines, force people to move around the map, and that way, you know, the carnivores can, you know, go to those areas and hunt and stuff like that, if that makes sense. You know, add a more realistic setting to Path, because it's very PvP based. I mean, it's very clear that it's PvP based if you just look at all the buffs and stuff like that you can run. It's a great variety. I love the PvP, but you know, there needs to be some other stuff to it, because it gets very stale. Maybe you get more XP for growth from the migration zone, maybe more coins. Maybe even if you take part in these migrations, you get skins, or maybe, I think a really cool thing would be is the abilities. You know, a lot of the abilities you just buy with coin, but I feel like there should be, obviously they're trying to add this questing system, the new questing system. I'm not sure how it's going to work. maybe it's like you pick a mission and stuff. I feel like it'd be really cool for this game to, you know, get abilities from missions rather than just buying them. Maybe there's exclusives ones to exclusive to missions, so they're mission exclusive. It'll just add things to the game, you know, make you do PvE so then you can PvP. For example, in Destiny 2 you were forced to do raids and stuff for like helmets or guns. I feel like with the new questing system that they're gonna add, from what I know, I think it's gonna you're gonna run up to a dino and he's gonna give you a quest. I've heard about that. I feel like that'd be a really cool way that, you know, add exclusive moves or abilities for dinos that way. You know, that way it's like, oh, you know, a lot of people are gonna do this quest, stuff like that. And yeah, like going back to PvP stuff. Obviously they're doing the stuff for King of the Hill, Team Deathmatch, all of this stuff. Maybe they could add like a 3v3s, 1v1s, and then they could add like a ranked variation. That way you can show off to your friends or whatever, have a reason to PvP. If you want to do those modes, instead of just it being casual, you know, there should be casual and then there should be the ranked system, you know. And that would just be really cool, you know, you could show off that, oh, you're really good, or this and that. You know, actually prove that you're good instead of just, you know, because when you're out about on official servers, you know, it's not like you run into new players, you run into decent players, bad players, this, that, you know. Anyone can look good that way, but in ranked, you know, it'd really show who's the best. And I think that's really cool, as I really like competitive. So I'm sure there's other people that like to play competitively. And I think that Path has got a really good base for that. And just because of all the builds you can run and dinos and variety and stuff like that. Maybe they could add, you can only use 3 slots. You could only use 3 slot carnivores or herbivores, or 2 slots only, stuff like that. I think that would be really cool for a ranking system of PvP when they add team deathmatch and stuff like that. Another thing is skins and rewards for that ranking system. Like, not abilities. You can't really, if you lock abilities behind rank, then it's like it's going to be really hard for people that are newer to the game or just not as good to compete with those already at the top. So, but I would say skins exclusively for the highest ranks. Maybe even emotes, stuff like that. That'd be really cool, you know, get people to play that way, if that's what people want to do. Obviously, official is the main focus, as it should be, but I feel like that little ranking thing could be really fun, you know. It doesn't have to be like the main focus, but I feel like it just gives you something else to do, stuff like that. Now, my friend did suggest that maybe the skins actually do something other than just being skins. For example, certain skins could give you +2 damage, +2 armor, +3 speed, stuff like that. The more expensive they get or the harder the skin is to get, the better it is. Just little things, but yeah, I think that's doing too much. I just think that would be a little bit too much. But he thinks that build crafting should be harder and better for the game, which is fair enough, depending on what way the devs want to take this game. I think that the devs are very focused on PvP. Obviously they've still got a long way to go on Path of Titans and what they want to do, but I think a balance of both PvP and PvE is really good, because it's just nice to switch it up. If it has both of those fields, it can also bring in a lot more players rather than just focusing on one part of player base, you know, and stuff like that. But I think that's pretty much all the ideas I had that they could potentially add. Yeah, I think the rest of the video is just going to be me going over the gameplay and stuff like that. I'm going to kind of explain why I use Second Wind, especially now that Bleed has been nerfed in the latest update. But yeah, I just think that anyway, yeah, I'm gonna move on to why I use Second Wind on Pycno now. Obviously Pycno's got great stamina, but stamina recovery isn't the best, but it's got a really good trot speed, and when you're trotting you get that 150% from getting hit. So you know, for me that's why I use Second Wind, because it just increases my survivability by that much more, and it's helped a lot. So yeah, and then the build is just pretty basic. You know, I use the 2 attacks that do the most damage. Also Headbutt's just got the best what's it called, hit reg, obviously, and it does knockback, so it just keeps Quetzal's Hatsi's grounded and stuff like that. But yeah, and then also burst legs for distance, putting the smaller stuff distance between me, Conks, Megs and stuff like that. And yeah, anyway, I did try to group up with this Cerato. He didn't want to join up, so if you don't want to join the team, I don't know if you've got a friend coming over or something like that, and then you're just going to jump me later. So, and it happens very often, people try and act friendly and then they bring a friend, or if they don't join the group then they'll do it, and it's just like, may as well just kill them at that point. Make it easier on yourself when the next person comes in, and yeah, so I start fighting this guy. He just keeps running. It's a little bit too late to fight now. He's giving me a very big advantage to just, you know, finish the fight here, and yeah, I do. Now I'm not sure if this is a different Cerato, but there was Albert here and Apache who I was fighting, and this guy wasn't helping. So I wasn't sure if that was a friend, maybe he was AFK, so I just start killing him. And you can see a random Hatsi comes around. And I don't want to fight this Hatsi, as I've already got an Albert and Apache to fight right after this. So I don't want to make it a 3v1 instead of a 2v1, and the Albert's actually really strong. So yeah, and you can see actually I keep getting stuck on these hills. Once again, it's that thing, it's like there's so many hills. You can see they've also got a duck. It's a 3v1 already. But so many cliffs, so many hills everywhere. It's really easy to just cliff bait and stuff like that. Hills are okay, but massive cliffs are not so okay for me. It's because people use it to their advantage. It's not really the developer's problem or fault even. It's just like the player base are just gonna do whatever they can to win, and it gets a little bit cheesy, honestly. But yeah, and you can see this guy rests, and I was hoping that he did rest. You know, he used a lot of stamina, doing all those dodges and stuff. So yeah, and you can see now they have a Ramphorhynchus, which isn't gonna do damage to me. Don't really get the point of bringing a Ramphorhynchus if you don't have a bleeder, because starving me to death during the fight isn't probably going to do much, especially as I'm a Pycno. And the guy decided to try and fight me and he just died. But yeah.